Good morning and Jai Hind, dear students. I welcome you all again to the online classes of business studies. In the last classes, we have studied what is business, what are the concepts of business, difference between business, profession, employment, trade, and commerce, industry actually, and what are the different types of industries: primary industries, secondary industries, and tertiary industries. So now today we'll discuss a new a different aspect of commerce, that is trade. So first of all, the definition of trade. What trade means: trade is the activity which involves buying and selling of goods and services. The crux of the definition is the first line, that is, it is the activity which involves buying and selling of goods and services. Whenever a product, whether it is a good or it is services, is bought by someone, bought by a party with an objective to be sold to the second party, then that activity is called as trade. Here you have to not get confused that means it is a final activity, that if somebody is buying the product and just selling it to the final consumer, that doesn't means. It can go beyond the one stage. It can again be bought by some other party and again be sold to some other party. What does this mean? I'll explain you further, but for just now, keep this in mind, that the activity which involves buying and selling the goods and services, which mandatorily does not means that it reaches to the final consumer. A compensation is paid to seller by a buyer, or the exchange of goods and services takes between parties. Now this buying and selling is done whether in exchange, whether in lieu of the compensation paid by seller to the buyer, right? When somebody buys something, obviously he or she gives money to the seller, or the exchange of goods and services takes between parties. It is not mandatory that the compensation is always paid. There may be exchange of goods and services. Although this practice of exchange of goods and services is not too much in practice nowadays, in the present scenario, it was more of a thing in the past, which was obviously people have must have studied in history classes of your lower in lower classes of history chapters, that is barter system. Barter system, I hope all of you remember. If you don't remember, I'm giving you a brief explanation of that thing. In barter system, there was no involvement of any financial instrument, that is money or gold or silver. Those things were not involved, means any type of currency was not involved. Gold and silver were involved, but they were not considered as currencies in that case. Okay, if somebody needed wheat and somebody had rice, and that second person who is having rice, he or she needed wheat, then both these parties come together on a simple common platform, and they used to exchange things, right? So what we see here, no money is involved, only exchange of goods takes place. That thing was called as barter system. So that is also considered as trade. That was the ancient practice of, or we can say the ancient, not only ancient, in the medieval times also, that was the practice of trade. But nowadays trade is more or a less thing of a thing, an activity where currency is the instrument, which is the compensation paid to the seller by the buyer. Now just when I started, I told you that it is mandatorily not the practice which is just of one stage. Now I'll explain this thing to you, that why I said like this. Just for an example, assume that there is a person who is producing any type of good. Say it, anything you can take, whatever you like. Here for example, I'm taking a mobile phone. Fine. There is a manufacturer A who produces mobile phone. So obviously that mobile phone will be manufactured in a factory, isn't it? And it is also quite clear to you all of you are in class 11, that mobile phones, for purchasing mobile phones, we don't go to the factories where we do get those mobile phones. Obviously we go to the shops in our local markets, or we nowadays we are also going to the online portals for purchasing all these types of mobile phones. Fine. So how does we get that mobile phone to the from that shop or from that online portal? Right, we are not getting it from the factory, है ना? So There must be a person who is bringing that thing for us from factory to that shop or from factory to that online portal. Now there is not only one party who does this for us. There may be only one party, and there may be more than one parties. Fine. So now consider the person B. Person A was manufacturing the mobile phone in factory, and person B is the person who buys that phone from the factory. That is the person who is producing that mobile phone, person A, and brings it out of the factory. ठीक है. पर्सन बी होगा, वो फैक्ट्री से फोन को खरीद करके अपने पास लेकर आएगा. ठीक है. तो क्या हुआ, ए इज प्रोड्यूसिंग द मोबाइल फोन एंड बी इज ब्रिंगिंग दैट मोबाइल फोन फ्रॉम फैक्ट्री टू any place wherever he is or she is situated. ठीक है. नाउ दिस इज नॉट मैंडेटरी दैट हम उस पर्सन बी से ही मोबाइल फोन खरीद लेंगे. वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू परचेज दैट फोन फ्रॉम पर्सन बी ओनली. इट्स नॉट मैंडेटरी. हो भी सकता है और नहीं भी हो सकता है. आई एम सेइंग राइट. क्यों नहीं हो सकता है, हो कैसे सकता है, पहले समझिए. हो सकता है कि हमारा कोई शॉप वाला हो, बहुत बड़ी शॉप वाला हो, और बहुत पास में ही कहीं कोई फैक्ट्री हो उसके मार्केट के, तो वहां से ले आया और उसने सेल करना शुरू कर दिया. बट जनरली दिस डजंट हैपेंस बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ द शॉपकीपर्स हु आर सिचुएटेड इन द लोकल मार्केट्स, दे डोंट हैव दिस कनेक्शंस टू द मैन्युफैक्चरर्स डायरेक्टली. होता क्या है, मैन्युफैक्चरर से आपके एक पूरी सिटी में कोई एक या दो लोग जो है फोन्स मंगाते हैं. ठीक है. बहुत बल्क में मंगाते हैं, बहुत ज्यादा मंगाते हैं. मतलब 500, 1000, 2000, 5000 ऐसे करके फोन मंगाते हैं. ठीक है. और अपने पास फैक्ट्री से ला देते हैं. ये तो दूसरी पार्टी हो गई. इनको हम कहते हैं होल सेलर्स और द सी एंड एफ, कैरिंग एंड फॉरवर्डिंग एजेंट्स. ठीक है. ये आपके डिफरेंट डिफरेंट टर्म्स हैं जो कि बहुत ज्यादा बल्क में फैक्ट्री से डायरेक्ट खरीदने वालों को हम बोलते हैं. ठीक. और अब क्या होगा, अब उस होलसेलर से जो हमारे लोकल मार्केट में जो रिटेलर है, द रिटेलर, द स्मॉल शॉपकीपर्स हु हैव द कैपेसिटी ओनली टू परचेज 10 मोबाइल फोन्स ऑफ वन काइंड, 20 मोबाइल फोन्स ऑफ वन काइंड, तो वो उसको वहां से उस होलसेलर से या सी एंड एफ से, या कभी कभी डिपो भी बोलते हैं उसको हम. ठीक है. उससे जाके, जनरली आप होलसेलर वर्ड लेके चलिए फॉर अ क्लियर अंडरस्टैंडिंग, कंफ्यूजन ना हो. उस होलसेलर से जाकर के, मान लीजिए कोई एक शॉप वाला है सी. ठीक है. सी ने गया और उसने कहा कि 10 मोबाइल फोन दीजिए, आई वांट 10 मोबाइल फोन्स ऑफ दिस काइंड, एंड ही टेक्स इट एंड कम्स राइट. अब उस on that local shop, that is the shop of Mr. C or Mrs. C or Miss C, we, the consumers or the customers, do go there and buy that mobile phone. ठीक है friends, students. So what we saw here that A produced it in the factory, B brought that product, that is the mobile phone, from factory to the uh, point uh, of wherever he has brought it to the his warehouse, fine. And from there, this party C, who is the retailer of that mobile phone, he or she took it from there and brought it to his or her place, and there we bought it. ठीक है. तो A से जो B में गया, right, the activity of mobile phone going from A to B, that is also trade, fine, because B वहां पे क्या है, buyer है, और A कौन है, seller है, और पैसे दिए होंगे, fine. अब बी से जब सी में गया ना, होलसेलर से रिटेलर के पास, वो भी एक ट्रेड एक्टिविटी है. क्यों? क्योंकि वहां भी बाइंग एंड सेलिंग हो रही है, इजंट इट. सी ने किससे बाई किया, बी से बाई किया, और उसको उसके पैसे दिए होंगे. एंड फाइनली व्हेन वी आर getting it from the party, that is the retailer or the final person from where we are getting it. That's why I said that it is not necessary that trade happens or trade takes place only in one stage. It may be in one stage, or in some cases it may be in multiple stages. So again, I am giving you the asking you to read this thing. Trade is the activity which involves buying and selling of goods and services, maybe at one level or at multiple levels. A compensation is paid to seller by a buyer or the exchange, that is money of goods and or exchange of goods and services takes place between parties. So I hope that definition, meaning, concept of trade is very clear to all of you. So now we will see that what are different types of trades.